Hey guys, I think I've just discovered a way to be a better boyfriend or girlfriend, a better parent, a better friend, and possibly just a better person in general. I can't take too much credit for the idea. I just stumbled onto it. It's called the Gaslight effect. Now that phenomenon really had a profound impact on me, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. I really wish we learned about this kind of thing in school, by the way. I feel like I've missed out, but I guess we'll discover it today together. And after we describe the phenomenon, I want to give you guys a little bit of a challenge to implement it in your life in a positive way. So this might apply to you if you've been called or have ever called someone one of these things. Have you ever said to somebody or had said to you that you're crazy, that you're being overly sensitive, that you're really dramatic, that you're high maintenance, perhaps that you're irrational or naggy? Or perhaps this list applies to you better, saying you're stubborn or you're lazy or insensitive or too jealous or angry all the time. Well, if you have, then you might be either the victim or a perpetrator of the gaslight effect. So without further ado, here's a quick description of what the gaslight effect is. All right, gaslighting is a very manipulative and abusive tactic. It's where you tell someone lies to intentionally mislead them into thinking of themselves in a more negative way. So here's an example. If I go around and I tell you constantly that you're irrational, you might start to doubt your own ability to reason and then be easier to manipulate. You become more vulnerable. So that's what gaslighting is in and of itself. But what I want to focus on is not gaslighting, but the gaslight effect. See, gaslighting, as I just described, is something that only happens in really abusive relationships. So I think that's probably pretty rare by comparison. I think that even good people can choose words which end up causing the same negative consequences as somebody who is intentionally gaslighting. In other words, you can cause the gaslight effect whether or not you're intentionally setting out to manipulate someone or not. You can still have negative impact on your loved ones by the words that you choose. You can still cause your partner to have a more negative conception of themselves. So let's figure out how we can avoid that. I have actually both experienced and caused the gaslight effect in the past. Right? Let me share one of my experiences with it. I was dating this girl. She had good intentions, and she used to say quite often that I was very bad at expressing my emotions. What's kind of odd is it was probably true, right? I probably wasn't good at expressing my emotions. But it doesn't really matter whether it's true or not. Just hearing repeatedly over and over again that you're bad at expressing your emotions caused me to think of myself as a person who was bad at expressing their emotions. So what ends up happening is that it compounds the problem. All right, I was originally perceived as somebody not able to express my emotions, and then I bought into that and it became even worse. Now I think I'm quite good at that, but only after realizing that gaslighting is a real thing, or that the gaslight effect is real. Now the example I just gave is pretty mild. I have a more extreme example, one where I was seeing gaslighting happen. It was happening to a child. Now I think children are probably, without a doubt, the most vulnerable group of people to this type of phenomenon. All right, so I was actually walking around essentially a park, and there was this young boy, I'd say maybe 6 to 8. I'm terrible at guessing those ages, but let's go with that. And his father was with him. All right, so it's just this boy and his father. And this pit bull starts to walk by. Now the son freaks out a little bit, right? He is terrified of this dog. He wants to hide behind his dad's leg, and the dad is having none of it, all right? He hits his son, with a string of profanities that I'm not going to repeat, all right? I'll leave it up to your imagination. But here's the gist of what he was telling his son. He was telling him that he was too afraid, that he was too stubborn, that he wasn't listening, that he's not doing anything right, that he's being ridiculous. Now I'm sure that's not the first or last time that little boy is going to hear that message, that he's not doing anything right, that his fears and his concerns and his worries are absurd, and that he's just not meeting his father's expectations here, that he's missing the mark here. Now repeating that message over and over to that son is going to have a negative impact on his self-esteem. If he hears it enough times that he's ridiculous and fearful and that his fears are absurd, he's going to buy it. He's going to believe that information, and it's going to have a negative effect on him. Now, we certainly wouldn't want to intentionally cause that effect on our loved ones. So if we realize our words have this power, we should be more careful with the words we choose. Now, let me stress this one point. Even if you think that your loved one is being ridiculous or overly sensitive or too jealous or emotional, expressing it can cause, expressing it in those negative words, can cause the gaslight effect. I'm sure that that father honestly thought that his son was being too afraid and too stubborn and irrational and ridiculous. Right? I'm sure the father really thought that was true, but the way he chooses to express himself is still going to have a negative impact on his offspring, whether he likes it or not. So we do have to be careful with the words we use. Now, men and women are equally vulnerable to the gaslight effect. In fact, any repeated critique is going to end up causing the gaslight effect. The more often you say a thing, the more harmful the gaslight effect would be here. But I think that some terms are particularly effective on women and some terms are particularly effective on men, and that's entirely a result of the society we find ourselves in. All right? The gaslight effect is most prominent when the buzzwords that we use, those negative terms that end up causing the gaslight effect, are things that our society has already conditioned us to expect. Right? For example, I think that our society portrays women as crazy and irrational and overly sensitive. So if that's true, then those terms are likely to be particularly harmful to repeat. Right? Here's an example of how our society perpetuates that stereotype.
But I'm talking about all those times that women get mad at men for no reason at all, or at least no explainable reason. Guys, you know what I'm talking about. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about. Even if you don't know why you do it, I think I might. If there is any possibility whatsoever that a girl can take what a guy said and put a negative twist on it in their own mind, they will do that. So for instance, something like this, "Hey babe, you look pretty today," can turn into this. "Hey babe, you look pretty today."
See what I'm talking about? It would be very easy for a woman to view herself as irrational if society's been warning her since for all of her life that women are irrational. Right? This cannot just make men expect women to behave irrationally and overly sensitive and in crazy ways, but it might actually make women expect themselves to behave as crazy, irrational, or overly sensitive. Here's an example of a woman internalizing this norm.
I've discovered why I act crazy.
I have a vagina.
Just kidding. But I have had people tell me my entire life that I'm crazy. And I'll be the first to admit, okay? I can be emotionally unstable with mood swings, cry for little to no reason, and I do suffer from frequent bouts of irrationality.
Why aren't you a violin?
Well, now I know why. Birth control.
So this was a pretty cool observation, I think. Negative social norms are essentially society causing the gaslight effect on us. Society keeps telling us over and over again to expect these negative traits, and we internalize it and end up believing that lie. All right, now we find ourselves in a patriarchal society, which means I think there's probably more negative stereotypes about women than there are about men, but there are still plenty of negative stereotypes that men can suffer the gaslight effect from or be particularly vulnerable to. Here's a couple examples of things that men might suffer from a stereotypical perspective. Being called jealous, or easily overreacting, or controlling, or stubborn, or insensitive, or perhaps even lazy. Right? Now, comedy often plays off these negative stereotypes. Sometimes they even mock these negative stereotypes. Here's an example of comedy interacting with these negative social norms.
Hey babe, I'm going to the gym. I'll see you in a little.
Okay, man. Have fun. You're going to the gym wearing those tights?
Yeah?
Not like that, you're not!
Oh my god, you're overreacting.
Why don't you wear the shorts I got you? These are comfortable.
I'm not wearing those. I'll look like a boy. Gosh, Eric, you're just so jealous.
So finally, that brings me to the challenge. All right, so if you are a boyfriend, I want you to talk to your girlfriend. All right, I want you to come up with a list of things that you say, some insults or negative terms you're particularly fond of using, and then ask your girlfriend if you've missed any. All right, is there any nicknames or negative terms that you missed, that you left out? And I want you just to eliminate those from your vocabulary. All right, it's only going to last a month. That's all you have to do it for. Just try it out, and see how your arguments change with these terms missing. Now, of course, be sure to avoid all the terms that are associated with negative stereotypes about women, right? So hit all the obvious ones. Don't call your girlfriend crazy, irrational, overly sensitive, or naggy. And be sure not to use these terms even if you think that they're actually applicable or true at the time, right? Now, girlfriends, challenge is the same for you except inverted here, all right? It lasts a month just like the guys challenge. I want you to go talk to your boyfriend, make a list of all the insults that you think you typically or repeatedly offer, see if there's any that you have missed that your boyfriend might be aware of, and just eliminate those terms from your vocabulary altogether. See how your arguments or disputes change over this next month. Now be sure to avoid all the negative stereotypes for men as well, right? So don't call your boyfriend lazy, insensitive, stubborn, or jealous, even if at the time those seem like accurate things to say. Now don't be afraid to playfully call each other out here when you mess up. And equally important, be sure to give kudos when you notice that your partner is making an effort not to use these negative terms. I'm hoping that just being aware of the gaslight effect is gonna, or just being acknowledging its existence will end up making you perform these actions less. One last tip for success. One of my friends who's wiser than me told me this, and I think it'd be useful to you too. If you're ever feeling like you want to say something like you are irrational or you don't make any sense, right? Instead, just say something like I don't understand your position, or I'm having a hard time following you, right? So use I messages. Talk about yourself rather than your partner using negative terms to refer to them. So without further ado, go ahead and give the challenge a go and let me know how it turns out for you. As always, test everything, hold on to the good.